Fentanyl, one pill can kill. These pills, counterfeit pills, are fake and they're fatal. Imported from China through our borders, run by cartels and syndicates all across this country, and distributed many times through social media. It's an issue of magnitude, a crisis that we are not discussing enough. You'll hear it in tidbits here and there, but we absolutely are not addressing this problem to the level it needs to be. In fact, our government just announced that fentanyl poisoning has become the #1 cause of death, 18 to 45 in our country. Not #1 cause of drug death, the #1 cause of overall death in our country is a synthetic poison, fentanyl. And you need to understand what's taking place. Your children need to understand what's taking place. Our community, society, our country needs to come together. This is a pandemic and we need to stop it. No one taught me how to deal with family issues and hard experiences. I was introduced to drugs at just 11 years old. After spiraling out of control, I ended up in prison for a crime I did not commit, but one I was absolutely responsible for. Well, I'm your bad dream. But here's the good news. Now you get a second chance. I'm about to tell you the hard truth behind drugs that you have never heard before.
It should have been me laying there, not her.
I would do anything to hug you.
Alcohol,
nicotine,
vaping,
marijuana,
Cocaine,
meth,
heroin, farm music.
These are the consequences of making bad choices in life. This is how you have to visit your son.
12 years after doing my time, I committed the rest of my life to preventing drug abuse, traveling around the country. Because there is hope.
For 8.5 years later, I am still clean and living a life that I could have never imagined.
Making their test become a testimony. I want to share some of these stories with you. I am Michael De Leon. Because these little pills are real, these pill parties are real, and these kids are playing Russian roulette with their life. So, we have to have these conversations and we have to talk about it. I wrote a book for parents, how to have these conversations. 6th grade through 12th grade. I wrote a second book for parents, how to talk about this between kindergarten and 5th grade. People say, when should I start talking to my kids about drugs? Kindergarten. This is kindergarten through 5th grade. This is 6th through 12th grade. It works for teachers, it works for coaches, mentors, it works for parents, guardians, grandparents. We've got to have these conversations. In 2010, I was home from prison 3 years, and I went back to college to get my degree in counseling. And I had a caseload of 26 kids in an adolescent treatment program that I was doing an internship at. 26 adolescent kids who were addicted to heroin, in recovery, in treatment, trying to find long-term freedom and abstinence from drugs. And in the span of 10 days, I lost 4 of them to a relapse in 10 days of each other. I went to 4 kids' funerals. And I decided I wanted to do something about it, and I wanted to get the message out there of what had happened, because 2 weeks after the funerals, the parents started getting the toxicology reports, and the toxicology report said fentanyl, and everyone was calling me, what is fentanyl? So that was 2010, okay, 14 years ago, we had a fentanyl problem. Here we are in 2024, we have a fentanyl pandemic, and it's worse than it's ever been, and it's gonna get worse. So I made a movie about it. It's on YouTube, it's on our website. Kids are dying. I went to this little city called Camden, New Jersey. It's right next to Philadelphia across the river. And I get out of my car and I start walking down the street looking for somebody who was addicted to heroin. It took me about 30 seconds to find someone. So I walk over to her and I said, hey, how you doing? I'm making a documentary film on addiction. With all due respect, you look like you could help me out. Her name's Christina. She was living in that abandoned house right there. These are the first 4 kids I interviewed on the first day. I said to her, I'm doing a documentary film on addiction, and I'd like to tell your story. She said, tell my story to who? Well, I go into schools and I talk to young people about staying away from drugs and alcohol. She's like, you're gonna show this to kids? And I said, yes. So she pulled up her arm sleeves and she said, here, don't show kids this. I don't know how old she looks to you in this picture. She's 20. That girl is 20 years of age. And 2 years earlier, she walked across her high school graduation stage to accept valedictorian of her graduating class. She was on the top of a cheerleading pyramid at a football game, and she fell. They missed her, and she fractured her tailbone. Well, they rushed her to the hospital. Not sure if you know this, there's no such thing as a tailbone cast. They put her on Vicodin, Percocet, morphine, liquid OxyContin, 80s, and sent her home from the hospital. She became addicted to the opioids within 2 weeks. And the doctors gave her more and more and more, and then she saw 7 additional doctors getting opioids from 8 primary pain medication doctors, and then they cut her off. So she walks 10 blocks down from her dorms in Philadelphia to a section of Philadelphia called Kensington. The only thing I can tell you it's like is if you watched The Walking Dead. It is exactly like The Walking Dead. 2,000 to 3,000 fentanyl addicts walking Kensington blocks like zombies. That was just 6 weeks ago. And it looked exactly the same as it did 14 years ago. She walks down to Kensington, she picks up some heroin, and she goes back to her dorms and starts shooting it. And that took her 1 month. When I interviewed her, she was shooting 30 bags of heroin a day. And 2 weeks after the interview, she died. So did Brian, so did Molly, and so did Crystal. First 4 kids I interviewed on day 1, they were all dead by the time the film came out. But I didn't want to quit. I wanted to tell her story. So I kept going. I went to Camden in Philadelphia every single day for 10 months. And I interviewed African American kids and Caucasian kids and Hispanic kids. I interviewed rich kids, poor kids, a police chief's son, a mayor's daughter, a pastor's daughter. I had 2 Amish kids in my movie. They were in a buggy accident with a truck and got put on opioids. These kids grew up without electricity in their house, and they were walking the streets of Camden hooked on heroin. When I tell you I had every walk of life, I had every walk of life. I interviewed 137 kids who were addicted to heroin. 121 of them started the same way as Christina. A dentist or a doctor prescribed opioid pain medication. They got addicted to the opioid pain medication, and they ended up on heroin. That was 88% of the kids, 121 out of 137. But 137 out of 137 had something else in common. Nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana. Nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana. I was like, you know what? Me too. Those were the first 3 drugs I was given at age 11. So now I've interviewed 10,700 men and women who self-proclaim self-define themselves as an addict or an alcoholic. I know the addict word sometimes sets people off. Some people don't like that word. 10,700 men and women who define themselves as an addict or an alcoholic. And I asked them a series of 30 questions. And 96% of them use nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana before the age of 18. 96% of almost 11,000 people. Gee, this is the cause of addiction. This is the underlying foundation of addiction. 90% of drug addiction begins as a teenager. 90% of drug addiction begins as a teenager, and that's why you need to prevent it from starting in the first place. I gotta get to the elementary school, middle school, high school kids and give them age-appropriate education to understand they have to believe that it can happen to them, and they can't get started. So, I did a second movie called An American Epidemic. I went to 30 states, and I interviewed 500 parents who buried their kids to an overdose of heroin, 500. And I asked every single one, hey, did your son or daughter use alcohol before age 18? 500 said yes. Did they smoke weed before 18? 500 said yes. Did they vape, chew tobacco, or smoke cigarettes? And 500 said yes. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. 100% of the parents who put their child in a casket and buried them from the heroin overdose, alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana before the age of 18. And this was the time that marijuana was beginning to become legalized for recreational purposes in Colorado and the state of Washington. California did it for years and years earlier, right? Anyway, not legally, but illegally. I did a movie called Marijuana X, and I wanted to show everybody what was happening with marijuana. So in 2015, dispensaries in Colorado had been open for about 2 years, and I walked into a marijuana dispensary, and there was these 2 little vape vials on the counter, and the sign over the vials said liquid weed. I said, "Come here, kid, what's liquid weed?" And the bud tender behind the counter said, "Now you can vape it." I said, "Vape it? Vaping? You mean the device that's helping people quit smoking?" And he laughed in my face. Yeah, that device. You can vape it. I said, "Why would someone who's trying to quit smoking vape weed?" And he looks at me and goes, "You really think they designed that to help people quit smoking?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess not. If you can vape it, this is going to become the drug delivery system for every drug on earth." And he looks at me and says, "Bro, it already is." Marijuana cannabis has been around for thousands and thousands of years. Almighty God put that plant in the ground thousands and thousands of years ago. The first molecule of marijuana wasn't discovered until 1960, and it was 1%. Now what they're selling out there is up to 100%. So here's 2 bags of fentanyl. The picture on the right, I took that picture at a precinct in Philadelphia. The picture on the left, those are 2 bags of pure fentanyl. I took it at the Maricopa County Drug Locker in Phoenix, Arizona. If you put your finger in either one of those bags and touch it to your tongue, you're dead. It's pure fentanyl. You'll die instantly. I could have 6 Narcans lined up on a table and I might not be able to bring you back. It's pure fentanyl and it will kill you. And it started flooding into this country in the year 2000. 2000, and it started coming into the country. The largest fentanyl bust in global history was in 2006. The largest fentanyl bust in global history was in 2006, and then it kind of died down again until 2014, and then it exploded. I was doing these presentations in New Jersey called The Storm of Heroin. If that's a storm, the blue lines, what's fentanyl, the red lines? A tornado? Well, this is maddening. So in 2017, the Customs and Border Patrol issued a report, and they said pill press machines are flooding into this country at 19 times the rate as they were just 6 years earlier, 2011. So CNN did a show on it, and I was invited by the Deputy Director of the DEA to go on the Anderson Cooper show to talk about the pill press machine problem that we were having in this country. So we go to the Anderson Cooper show, and he says to the Deputy Director of the DEA, "Why would China be sending pill press machines into America?" And it was like the highlight of my life. The Deputy Director of the DEA said, "Let's ask the drug addict." That was me. I knew they brought me for a reason. So Anderson Cooper says, "Mr. De Leon, well, why would China be sending pill press machines into America?" I said, "Well, Mr. Cooper, let me show you something. See this bag of fentanyl? See this little smidgen right here? The 2 or 3 little grains of sand or salt? If I take that little bit of fentanyl and I put it in a bag of heroin and I sell it on the street for $5 or $10, the heroin addict's gonna love it, because fentanyl is 10 to 100 times more potent than heroin, but it's 1/10 the cost. So it's a great business model for the cartels. They're shipping something into this country that costs them 1/10 to make, but it's 100 times more potent, so the drug addict loves it. See, fentanyl is something that is very addictive, and addicts love it. But that's not all who's dying from it. If I take that little smidgen of fentanyl and I put it in a bag of heroin, and I sell it on the street for $5 or $10, but if I take a pill press machine and I press it into a pill and make it look like an OxyContin 80, I can sell it for $75. Why would I want to get $5 for something when I can get $75 for the same thing? And they all kind of nodded their head. And the DA was like, "Exactly, we would have said the same thing." Okay, I thought something was going to change. I really did. Nothing changed. I mean, I'm scouring the news on a daily basis to see what's going to change. Nothing changed. 2017, it was St. Patrick's Day. I was on that show. So I started buying pill press machines. This pill press machine over here, I bought that pill press machine for about $300 on Amazon.com. I bought this pill press machine for about $120 on Walmart.com. And they were shipped to my house by DHL from China. Just this morning, in preparation for this, I went on Google to see what I could find. Here's 2 I found this morning. Here's 2 more I found this morning. You can buy that pill press machine for $1,000, have it sent to your house, and start making fentanyl pills on your dining room table. Right now, in 2024, you can still do it to this day. Why? Why? How could we possibly allow this? It's so bad. I'm sure you heard about the little 1-year-old child who died at a daycare center in the Bronx. But what you didn't hear in the national news, it was only on local news, that 3 other kids, 4 total in a 10-day time period, died from different fentanyl labs that were operating within a 5-block radius of that daycare center. When that guy got busted, that daycare center got busted, that little child died. Not only did he have pill press machines, he had a kilo press. That's what that is. That's how much fentanyl he was pressing out of that daycare center. He had a kilo press. All over this country. This is one of the other toddlers who died that week in the Bronx. Jay Inslee in Washington has even made a new law. About 6 other governors has followed suit. If you get caught selling fentanyl pills and you have a pill press machine, it's extra time on your sentence. This is maddening what's taking place, and kids can't tell the difference between a real pill and a fake pill. You can't tell the difference. I took all these pictures as well at our border in San Luis, Arizona. I took all those pictures. They came out of backpacks of people who were strolling across the border. This guy in Yuma had 40 bags, 20 blues, 20 whites, in a duffel bag that he got busted by Border Patrol with. So all over the country, especially Arizona, especially New Mexico, especially Texas, especially Southern California, all these busts are happening. Every single state in America, and if you look at California, a 2,137% increase. 2,137% increase in fentanyl deaths from 2015 to 2021. Ohio, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, California. California has just jumped Pennsylvania and Massachusetts because California has seen an 894% increase from 21 to 23. So now you're number 5. California is the 5th highest state for fentanyl death. Oregon to the north, now they are number 1. Washington to the north of them, now they're number 2. And there's no coincidence why Washington is number 2 and Oregon is number 3. There's no coincidence because both states have decriminalized all illicit drugs. So if you get caught with an ounce of fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine on the front seat of your car, and you get pulled over for a taillight, the police officer is not even taking your drugs. When you decriminalize or legalize drugs, you do not solve addiction. You pour gasoline on it. That's someone with 48 years of personal experience. Decriminalizing and legalizing drugs is not going to get rid of the drug problem. That's not a political statement at all. When you legalize and decriminalize drugs, you destigmatize it, you make it more normalized, and you make it more available. People say, well, our prisons are full of drug addicts. That's true, but they're not there charged with addiction. They're there charged with crimes committed because of their addiction. So when you pour gasoline on addiction, you increase the crime as a result of that addiction. It's absolutely irrefutable. The 2 states that have decriminalized drugs in the last 3 years are now the 2 top states for fentanyl death in our country. So, I did a survey with the Arizona Department of Health in 2022. We took 5,000 8th graders, 5,000 10th graders, and 5,000 12th graders, and we gave them an anonymous survey, and questions in that anonymous survey were about fentanyl. One of the questions is, what is fentanyl? And 47% of 8th graders, 33% of 10th graders, and 25% of 12th graders did not even know what fentanyl was. If they don't know what fentanyl is, they're the most susceptible to die from it. Because they'll believe the gummy is real, they'll believe the pill is real, they'll believe the vape cartridge is real. And they're not even going to think the possibility exists of a poison if they don't even know what the poison is. I could do that same survey in California and I get the exact same results. So, you cannot tell the difference between a real pill and a fake pill. Here's a 17-year-old girl who died because her best friend gave her a Xanax pill. It wasn't a Xanax pill, it was a fentanyl pill. 17 years of age. In Bakersfield, Bakersfield, California, a 16-year-old girl died in the girls' locker room of her high school. A student gave her a pill, told her it was a Percocet. It wasn't. Folsom, California, Zach Didier, 17 years of age, graduating high school as a junior, getting ready to go off to college as a junior, wasn't even going to have to complete senior year of high school because that's how far advanced he was. Well, he never made it, never graduated, because the pill he got off the internet wasn't real, it was fake. Gunnar Bundrick was valedictorian in his graduating class, Prescott High School 2 years ago. Jake was number 4. Football stars. They're good. Their dream was to play in the NFL. They weren't really that good, I guess, because they didn't get a D1 scholarship to college. But they both got offered a D2 scholarship, and they both went to a college, junior college, to play football with dreams to advance. After a football game one weekend, they're at a party. There's a bowl of pills on a table. They each take one and put it in their pocket and go back to Gunner's house. 7 other kids at that party overdosed. Half the kids at the party jumped in their cars and split. That's what we need to tell kids. Your friends are not necessarily your friends. Your friends might not be there for you in your time of need. Friends are okay, just make sure you know who your friends are. Well, thank God the rest of the kids at that party did the right thing and they called 911. 911 came and Narcan revived all 7 kids that had overdosed. But no one's on Instagram reporting what's going on, so Gunnar and Jake, who were back at Gunner's house, didn't hear that those pills were fentanyl. They took them and lied down, and Mom found them in the basement the next morning dead. How'd you like to come down to your basement and find your 18-year-old son, his 19-year-old friend dead in your basement because they took a pill out of a bowl at a party they didn't really understand? So, the DA's been warning about this, talking about candy, and people say, come on, man, there's no fentanyl in candy. 2 guys in Baltimore, Maryland, put those fentanyl tablets in all those nerd boxes and Skittles bags and drive to Bridgeport, Connecticut, and 17 middle school and high school children have been attributed to dying from pills distributed by those 2 gentlemen in candy wrappers and candy boxes. This is another gummy experience in Athens, Georgia. I have over 30. You can go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's and get gummy mix, and you can put fentanyl in the gummy and sell the gummies as the fentanyl gummies. The market's pretty big. If I'm an addict, a gummy of fentanyl is something I want to consume. But unfortunately, some people are getting these gummies and they're not looking for fentanyl. They don't even know that fentanyl's in it. Like those 4th and 5th graders at Amherst, Virginia. So, here's another woman coming into LAX airport with 14,000 fentanyl pills in her carry-on luggage. 6 kids in 2019. 6 kids in 2019 are at a high school in West Virginia, and they rushed to the hospital. 2 of them died. They overdosed on heroin. And the heroin was in a vape. A girl had a vape with heroin in it. I interviewed the 4 surviving kids, and I said, did you know heroin was in that vape? None of them said they knew heroin was in the vape. And in the same month, 4 little kids from Salt Lake City, Utah, rushed to the hospital. 1 of them died. It was discovered methamphetamine is what killed that kid, and those other 3 kids overdosed from. And it came out of a vape cartridge. I interviewed the 3 surviving kids. I said, did you know meth was in the vape pen? They said, no, they didn't. So I started testifying about it, and I got a chance to be in front of Congress, the Department of Justice, and I said, these kids died of illicit drugs in a vape. This is going to be a catastrophe. And I was called a conspiracy theorist by a congressman from Connecticut. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, you're using 2 cases, one in West Virginia, one in Utah, to describe this as an epidemic. This isn't an epidemic. I said, okay, well just pay attention and keep watching. Didn't take long. A 15-year-old girl in Mifflin County, Pennsylvania gets a vape cartridge off Snapchat, puts it in her vape views pen, and goes into the bathroom in school and hits it. And she dies. Fentanyl poison. Fentanyl was in the vape cartridge. 3 more kids died that spring, Mifflin County, Pennsylvania. A 15-year-old girl in Semmes, Alabama, tells her parents the week before she dies, Mom, Dad, I think there's fentanyl in kids' vape pens in school. She actually says that, and then she goes and uses one. She uses one. After she told her parents she thinks that fentanyl exists in vape pens. So I don't know how invincible you have to be as a 15-year-old girl, but she was pretty invincible. Well, how about 5 football players after practice in Selma High School, Selma, Alabama. One kid pulls out a vape pen, shares it with the 4 kids. They all hit the floor. Coaches are freaking out. They realize what's going on, so they run to the coach's room to get Narcan. They had Narcan. They run back to Narcan the kids. They had 4 Narcans, and there's 5 students. So it takes about 20 minutes for the paramedics to get to the school. Student dies. Kid dies, child dies. Those are the 2 words I can't accept together. I just can't. I think there's people who can. I really do. I can't. A student, a child dying, I just cannot accept that. How about a 13-year-old kid in middle school? Now, mom turns it into a bully story for Fox News, right? Those mean old bullies made my son hit the vape in the bathroom. Whether they did or he did it on his own volition, the end result is all I care about. A 13-year-old boy walks into a middle school bathroom and hits a vape for the first time and the one time in his entire life. He's paralyzed on the left side of his body. He's blind out of his left eye. He's deaf out of his left ear after having a stroke at 13 years of age and being in a coma for almost a week. And 40 miles away from him, it happened to a 12-year-old named Riley. And he's not back in school either. He's at a behavioral health center. Okay, Bellevue police believe 2 teens overdosed on fentanyl-contaminated vape pens. The only thing that has come out of this case, both those kids survived, thanks God, but the only thing that's really come out of this case is the arguing that there wasn't fentanyl in the vape. It was only THC. It was only THC. They were revived by Narcan, and I can tell you Narcan doesn't revive anyone from a THC overdose. It's only an opioid overdose. So they were THC pens, the vape pens that they were using, but they contained fentanyl. Fact. This is maddening, and it's happening all over our country. Whether it's a vape or a pill, the death of the child is what my concern is. This is Timothy Parker. He was a junior at the engineering school from Wilmington, North Carolina, at North Carolina State University. And he was the 10th kid to die on campus last year. 10 kids dead on campus from a fentanyl overdose. 4 were vape cartridges and 5 were from fake pills. New Rochelle, New York. A boy walks into a bathroom with that vape pen. He bought those 2 cartridges from another kid in his school. He puts 1 cartridge in the pen and hits the vape pen. Within seconds, he's on the floor. Thank God another boy who walked into that bathroom a minute later saw him, and instead of running, because he thinks he's going to get in trouble, he runs and gets the school resource officer. Cop runs into the bathroom, realizes what's going on, and he radios the nurse, and the nurse runs down with Narcan. My first question was why the cop didn't have Narcan on him, but whatever. The nurse has it and runs out to the bathroom, and I interviewed her. Her words, his lips were blue, and his body was cold when I touched him. He was dead, dying. His respiratory system was almost shut down. And she shot Narcan up his nose, 2 dosages, and he was revived at age 15. It's happening everywhere, every race, every demographic across our country. We've got to declare this a national state of emergency. We have to. This is a pandemic. We've got to declare it a weapon of mass destruction because it's no longer a drug trying to addict people. You do not put fentanyl in a Xanax pill, press it to look identical to a Xanax pill, and then somebody that's looking for a Xanax pill, you sell it to them, and it kills them. You're not trying to get a repeat customer. You're trying to kill the person. Why would a drug dealer try to kill the person? That's a question that you should really ask yourself. I can tell you I've asked myself that question, and I know the answer. This is a weapon of mass destruction coming in from China and India, and if we do not hold this accountable and change our political perspective towards this, we've got to get it out of the political perspective. There is so much in America that we can disagree about. Abortion, gender rights, guns. I mean, there's so many issues that we can differ on. How about we just take children and drugs off the table and just agree on those 2 things? I just wish we could just agree on that. Let's agree on children, that they're valuable, and let's agree on drugs, that it kills everyone. This is what we have to do. So, we have to shut this open border, and this is critical. Some people tell me we have to shut the border to stop the fentanyl from coming in. Absolutely will not stop the fentanyl from coming in. But at the Laredo Bridge, right? There is 15,000 trucks that cross that bridge every single day, and we search 1% of them. 1% of those trucks we search for drugs. Why? Because the 75% of personnel that used to work at that bridge are changing diapers, are processing people into the country. It is a massive, massive catastrophe. If you want to know why fentanyl is the #1 cause of death in this country, 18 to 49 years of age, that's why it's pouring into the country. And unfortunately, the left and the right have politicized it. And now if you say the word border, if you say we have to shut this down, you are somehow a bigot or you don't understand immigration. Well, I believe you shouldn't talk about immigration unless you're an immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I'm talking about this because this poison that's pouring into our country is killing little children. And we have to have mandatory Narcan in schools in all 50 states in this country. I was at a school in Mississippi who has had 3 overdoses, 2 that resulted in fatalities, and 1 that was revived. And he said, the state of Mississippi is not giving us enough Narcan for all our personnel. The principal has one and the nurse has one. I said, how many teachers and personnel do you have here? He said, 54. I said, I'll have you 60 Narcans on Monday. And he literally calls my wife the following Wednesday crying because he got a FedEx package on Tuesday with 60 Narcans in it. Give it to every single, I wish it wasn't a fire extinguisher. You know, most of us have fire extinguishers in our kitchen, and most of us are never going to have a fire in our kitchen in our entire life. But that doesn't mean you don't have the fire extinguisher there. Most of us, how many of y'all love paying car insurance? Everybody loves paying car insurance, right? How many of y'all just love it, can't wait to use it? I don't want to use my car insurance. I wish I didn't have to pay for it, but if you get into an accident, you're glad you have it. Narcan is vital, and I told your beautiful principal, if you want more Narcan in this building, I'm telling you right now, I will get it to you. I will have it shipped to you, free of charge. This is a nightmare, a nightmare. So, I didn't want to just talk to you. I am so grateful you stayed after school today. I'm so grateful that you're listening to this, but I want to give you a course. I went and shot a whole 8-video course called Fake and Fatal. And we spent $47,000 having it studied and deemed evidence-based. So it is the first video fentanyl curriculum in America that is now evidence-based, and it's free. I would love you to give it to every high school student. I'd love you to send it out to every high school family. I'd like you to give it to all your colleagues. If you went to school with teachers that are teaching in Louisiana, send it to them. It's free of charge. I'm not selling it. I refuse to sell it. I will not sell it. We'll never get that money back, and I don't want it back. All I want to do is educate people about fentanyl. This is free. Share it with everybody that you know. Listen, take your Christmas card list that you had and send it out to every single person on your Christmas